Hello again, and welcome back to another episode of Mindful Intentions Nurture and Drive Your Business. This is Reverend T, the Mindful Coach. And now I have a guest whose name is Anthony Messina. He is an innovator in men's coaching space and an expert in the space of power. He supports men in their journey through power reclamation via coaching community. If you are a man seeking radical transformation in your life and have a desire to create your own reality, Anthony is the man you need to speak with. And today he's going to give you some great insight on how to do so. And not only that, but if you are watching this live or if you come back for the replay, you can text guest, GUEST, to the number 26786, and you will receive free gifts. That's how awesome he is. So welcome, Anthony. Thank you for being here today. And before we get started, I also have to say thank you, God, for allowing me to do this. And we're going to let this spirit move and go wherever it decides to go. But Anthony, thank you for being a guest on my show. And just tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Absolutely. So my name is Anthony. I'm a men's power coach and the founder of Master My Power. And what I do is I help men reclaim their power. I help men to step into their power, and I help men master their power. And most oftentimes when people think of power, they automatically think of control. But that's not what power is. Power is about ownership of our own lives. Power is about taking control of what we can and having ownership in our own lives, and understanding and realizing and taking action on the fact that we generate everything that exists within our lives. And it can be a hard pill to swallow, but it can also be the most liberating thing possible when you decide to be responsible. So I support men in that journey, helping them take back their power from whatever it is they've been giving it away to. And I do this most expansively in the space of community. So I have a group program that's actually launching next week and supporting men through that in community, bringing men together and realizing that brotherhood is not a weakness, but a strength. And to ask for that help it's a gift. So.
Yeah, because often that's something that men do not do, right? They don't like to ask for help because they got it. They can do it. Us ladies, we come together and we will lean on one another, but men, they'll stand alone. And I commend you for showing that vulnerability that shows that men do need someone to lean on. And I understand that wholeheartedly, that guys, just because they're men, need a space where they can lean. They can't always have to be thought of as the strong, dependent one or independent ones. Sometimes they need someone to depend on. And so that's great that you've created this space for them.
Yeah, thank you so much. And kind of a secondary spiritual awakening I had over the past week, it was brought to my awareness that when we try and do everything on our own as a man, and specifically for me in my relationship, when I'm trying to be everything, I'm trying to take the role of God. I'm trying to be God, and I will fail at that every single time. I'm a piece of God, but I am not God. And trying to take that role will set you up for failure. And so realizing that, acknowledging that, leaning on other men, having a good relationship with God, and utilizing the resources you have around you is your way to enhance your human experience.
Yeah. So how do we get men to open up to that? Because a lot of times it can be scary for them and challenging to say, hey, I need help. Hey, I need someone to lean on, or it's going to make me look weak. And I don't think that's a sign of weakness, truthfully, when men ask for help. But they, for some reason, get it in their head that looks like it's weak. So how do you get them to open up to that?
So the start of it's always like the most challenging part, because there has to be a willingness to experience something new. For me personally, that came from a breakup, and it pushed me into radical change that brought about everything. The goal is not to start from that place of reactive and fear and all that. But oftentimes that's how men find themselves there. What I've started facilitating in the recent are men's circles. So this is simply a space where men come together. It's not coaching, it's men coming together and just being a open space for other men to connect. Wherever you're at in the country, there's probably options. I host mine virtually because I know that, smaller towns, especially, people don't have access to this. But a men's circle is a tight-knit container where men come together and they share, and they're emotionally open and they're vulnerable with other men. And it's not ever necessarily easy. It's almost always uncomfortable. But once you start to understand and know what's on the other side of that, then you're very willing to make that investment of, I'm going to open up my heart, open up and show these dark sides of myself, these emotions, these weaknesses to other men. And in turn, I'm going to be supported. And the biggest thing I take from those most oftentimes is realizing that we all struggle with the same thing. And there are people that I've had on pedestals that are crushing it in business. They seem like they've got everything together in their life. And then you sit around in a circle with them around a fire and they start talking about things and you're like, you have the same problems? You have the same problems. And it's not comfort in seeing somebody else have problems. It's comfort in knowing that you're not alone and that you experience the same thing. It's all part of this human experience.
Yeah. You know what? I'm glad that you said that, because I think a lot of times we put people on these pedestals and we think that they can't fall and they can't fail and they are so great, when they need the same things that we need sometimes. And a lot of times, because they look strong, people tend to overlook the fact that they need help or they need to be checked in on. And that doesn't just go for men, that's us women as well, because as women, we wear a million different hats, and I often tell my husband, I go, you just work and come home. And he doesn't, he's a pastor now. I'm like, not just, but he's a pastor now. And so that's his job, is pastoring. But before, when he worked, he just worked and he could come home and he could eat and sleep and do whatever. And I had to work and take care of the kids and do all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, he worked like 12, 13 hours a day. And he had other things that he had to worry about, as far as taking care of the home, taking care of the bills, all the stuff that he had, that he was wearing on his shoulders, that I had no clue of, because he wasn't sharing it with me, because he felt like that was not my responsibility. It was his responsibility. And it was so much his responsibility that it led him to having a aortic dissection and having 1% chance to live because his heart burst. Wow. And so you men need this circle. You need this lean into space so that you don't continue to carry these things, because us women will keep on piling stuff on you. And so help us to understand how we can be more supportive in that arena as well.
Yeah. So I'll bounce back to that question, but to finish off on that first part. So the circles are kind of that emotional opening, and this is the place where men get to start to build trust among other men. And so that's really where I get to see a lot of traction, because once men are open and susceptible to that, then that's when the breakthrough really comes, where it's like, okay, I'm not alone. I'm not weak for having these things. And from there, that's where I see most men who are open and willing to finding support outside of that, which for me is the form of coaching. And investing in my first coach was energetically, it was this shift of, I'm investing in myself, but it was also, I can't do this alone and I need support. And that energetic shift was extremely powerful. So first came that emotional vulnerability opening up. And in that, I was then able to say, okay, I need support. So that's kind of the two-step process. If men's circles aren't available where you're at, again, you can look online on Eventbrite. My page is Master My Power, and I host them every week, and they're virtual. And just a great place to come open up. So that's kind of the process that I've seen works really great for getting men to raise their hand and say, I need help. As for women helping their men, this is an ongoing thing that I get to work through every day in my life. It's been super present, actually. I would say that unwavering support and belief, and just knowing that, and it can look different in every relationship, but when you know that your woman believes in you, when she trusts you, there's this sense of that inspiring upon you. Most of us men have, and I think everyone has issues around self-doubt. We're our own worst critic. We say stuff in our head to ourselves that we'd never say to anyone else. So having your most intimate partner be somebody who supports you and like looks up to you is an incredible feeling of empowerment. So just that unwavering support. We could go deep into all the things that can happen within a relationship, but overall, just genuine support and belief in your man is incredibly powerful. And you got to ask him what that looks like for him, because some people receive it in some ways and some people don't.
Right, because our love languages are different. The way we receive and the way we react a lot of times is different for both men and women. And sometimes we think we're doing the right thing to affect someone and it's actually ineffective and it's the opposite of what they need. And so being able to understand what that emotion looks like or what that need is wonderful. And so I'm grateful that you're sharing this, because I think so many times, again, we think that men are these strong characters that can just do all things, but they're not God. And I think we do look to our men as God, right? Because when I think about that, when I think about Sarah in the Bible, she called Abraham Lord, right? She's like, Lord, he was her Lord. And there was a God that was higher than that, but Abraham went to God and everything was put on Abraham. It wasn't put on Sarah. Everything was put on Adam. It wasn't put on Eve. And my husband often tells me that. He's like, at the end of the day, whatever your opinion is fine. But when the decision is made, I'm going to be the one that's going to be responsible for what the outcome is. Right. So, I totally understand that. So you sharing this is really eye opening. And I think it might help a lot of men out there that's struggling to say, "Ooh, I get it." Even if they don't open up right now about it, they can at least feel that there's awareness and they can feel good in knowing that they're not alone. So I thank you for bringing this to the forefront. What is it that a man would need to do to come and get coaching from you? How would they reach out to you to get your help?
Yeah, so my Instagram is Master My Power. That you mentioned in the beginning, that text link, again, that is guest to 26786. If you reach out there, there's 2 free gifts. One of them is a 1-month access to a program I just released. It's a weekly thing. You'll have access to that. And then there's an offer for a free one-on-one power consultation with me. So we'll just dive in really quick and deep and see if there's any synchronicities there. I believe that I can support all men, but I don't think all men are meant to be my client. I think there's synergies everywhere. And I always look for that before bringing someone into my containers, because if you're going to invest in a coach, I don't want to put a bad taste in your mouth of what coaching is. And different people react differently. I'm really big on incorporating tough love. And a lot of what I'm doing right now is training men to be leaders in their own life and calling them on their crap when it's there. And I know for me, there was a big transformation in that, and I resisted the heck out of it. But frankly, it's what's needed for a lot of men, but not all men respond to that quite as well. So if you text to that link, you'll get an opportunity to book a free consultation with me.
All right, awesome. So what do you usually see the response rate when you are engaging the men in coaching? Are they susceptible to it? Are they more reserved and laid back? I mean, are they open? How do they approach this situation?
It is wildly different with every man. I will not bring a man on as a client if he is shut down. And frankly, like, even that process of enrollment, I don't even think it goes there, but I don't make an offer. I've done plenty of sales calls where I've got on the call, we had the conversation, and I'm like, it was great talking with you. I had a great time. Here's some resources to support you. And those resources I generally send them to are ways to start to open up and build self-awareness around yourself. A thing I find with a lot of men, especially having worked with a lot of men in relationships and breakups, is the stories they tell themselves. And I'd hop on calls with them and they'd want support, but then it would all be about justifying their story, explaining, and really living up in the head, instead of looking like, what's underneath this? Because there are patterns and traumas that are affecting what's showing up. Let's get into that. And there's some people I just couldn't break that surface with because they weren't open to it. So it's really a mixed bag. And the clients I love are the ones who are the most conscious, most open to feedback. And this can happen between any two people. And it was a breakthrough for me. And I realized I don't have to necessarily know more than you. I don't have to be above you in any capacity. I'm simply an outside awareness who's here to support you. And I can see things that you can't because you're so close to your problem.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I get it. So, one more thing I'd like to ask you before you went through your transformation, how did you see yourself before and where do you see yourself now?
Ooh. So this transformation started about a year ago. It started with the breakup. I think how I would describe myself before was I was very externally validated. I tried to control everything in my life. I had a wonderful life on the outside and I enjoyed every ounce of it, but fulfillment was truly missing and the inner work hadn't been done. So I was really chasing all these external things, very dependent on my girlfriend. Frankly, I didn't realize there was a problem. And that's the scariest part. And it took a big wake up call. And we actually got back together in February, which was a beautiful blessing. But it took that breakup to ignite all of that. And where I'd say now that I'm sitting is I'm very empowered. I was also very much a know it all. I thought I knew everything. I right now feel like I know less than I've ever known in the grand scheme of what's out there. Um, but I also do know a lot and I recognize that. So, um, very much so more humble. I'm much more connected. I'm very open, very much so more open hearted, more vulnerable with my woman, with my family, with other men. Um, and I'm very much a giver as opposed to a receiving energy that I kind of used to live off of. I show up to give, and in that, the universe and God always repay it tenfold.
God bless you. I appreciate you sharing your story because I know that there are a lot of people out there. I'm not saying just men, but a lot of people, men and women in general, that needed to hear this so they can get a better understanding of what this looks like. Because a lot of times they think men are maybe jerks, or they think men are egotistical, or they think men are know it alls or show offs or whatever. But sometimes it's just a nature of the beast and not being able to nurture what's really happening internally, right? And so I am grateful that we have someone like you that knows what that looks like, that understands it, and is willing to offer that to others so that they can know what it looks like and feels like and not be alone and can have someone to lean into. So, men, if that's you, if you're out there, if you're feeling something, if you're feeling conviction from what you've heard today, then reach out to Anthony and just give it a try. Hear what he has to say. And you never know, it might change your life because we know that Jesus came for the renewing of our minds. It's transformational. And if you renew your mind, you'll be transformed. And so, what Anthony is doing is helping you to reclaim your power and be transformed. And you can only do that by renewing your mind, right, Anthony? You got to renew your thoughts and the way you think. And so, go ahead and do it for yourself and for the loved ones around you because life is all we have. And once that's gone, what do you got? What do you got? So, Anthony, before we jump off of here, is there anything you'd like to leave our guests with?
Um, First off, thank you very much for having me here. I'm very honored. Second thing, what you said there, I resonate with very much. It's in part of my first module of my program. It's the biggest thing I say, and that is the work you're doing here for yourself is so much deeper than just you. It has a profound effect on everyone around you, your family, your friends, the world in itself, because it's a ripple effect of the energy you put out, and you generate every single thing in your life. And it is again one of the hardest pills to swallow. But if I'm to leave you with one thing, it's that. And start looking back. And if there are things in your life that aren't right now, if there are things that are challenging, if there are things that feel unaligned and you're just not happy, that's a really good sign that you need to dive in and start looking inwards.
Amen. Well, you heard it right here today. So start looking inwards, because a lot of times we can put up fronts on what we look outwardly, but change starts within. So do yourself a favor and do what you were created to do. Live your purpose. So thank you for tuning in. Anthony, hang out with me for just a few more seconds while I get us out of here. But thank you for tuning in today. I feel so grateful to be able to be back on this podcast. Remember, mindful intentions nurture and drive your business. Are you being mindful? Are you being intentional? Are you nurturing? If you are, it will drive your business. So go and be great and do what you were created to do. Live out your purpose. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you again next Thursday.